Hey, what's going on everybody? Mr. Buddy here, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite Generation 1 Pokemon. Now focusing in on the topic at hand, you guys don't need me to tell you about Generation 1. We all know about the original 151 Pokemon introduced in Red, Blue, and Yellow, so I won't spend a lot of time on this intro. What I will say, however, is that I grew up with Generation 1, and even though it isn't my favorite generation, there will always be a part of me that's super nostalgic for the games in the original Pokemon. Once again, I wouldn't say that Gen 1's Pokemon assortment is my all-time favorite, but there are definitely a lot of Pokemon in the lineup I love, and that's why in today's video, I'll be counting down my 10 favorite Pokemon found within the Kanto region. Now, one final quick note is that this video is entirely my opinion and is based 100% on my own personal preference. I don't battle Pokemon competitively, and I value the lore, story, general aesthetic, and characters within the Pokemon world much more than a normal person would, and because of that, my favorite Pokemon are based on things like if it has a really awesome design to me, or if I have a fond memory of using it within a game, or if it did something cool in the anime or manga, and other things like that. I'm sure my list is going to seem crazy to a lot of people, but in the spirit of sharing favorites, feel free to leave your own 10 favorite Pokemon from Generation 1 in the comments section below. Alright, with the intro out of the way, let's get this thing started and take a look at my top 10 favorite Pokemon from Generation 1. Number 10. Machamp. I'll fully admit that I've never been 100% on the Machamp train, but after using him in Pokken Tournament and seeing his attacks play out in such an over-the-top but still powerful way, he's kind of become one of my favorite fighting types now, and really one of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. Generally speaking, I'm not crazy about some of the more humanoid Pokemon out there, but there was just something about seeing Machamp's bravado in Pokken that inspired me to try him out in one of the Generation 1 games, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that he's a pretty decent Pokemon battle-wise. Now, as I said at the start of the video, I really only use my favorites in the games and don't actively seek out Pokemon that are the most viable. But when your entire team is filled with 5 Jigglypuff, having a Machamp to fight the tough battles is awesome and definitely knocked him up into my top 10 faves. Number 9. Porygon. Alright, raise your hand if you spent an insane amount of time in the game corner trying to get a Porygon. Because I certainly did, and even though I didn't know what a Porygon was when I was wasting hours playing the slots, I felt like if it cost that much money in-game, then it had to be something good, right? Well, the end result for me was somewhat mixed. I like Porygon, but I don't know if I like it because I spent hours playing the virtual slots to get enough money to buy one, or if it's because I like the concept of a digitally created Pokemon. It's probably some kind of combination of the two things, but the bottom line is that I dig Porygon conceptually in all its low poly glory, and even though we'll never see it get pushed heavily because of what happened in the anime with it, it will always live on in my heart and in my RAM. Number 8. Haunter. There are very few Pokemon lines out there where the middle evolution is the one I like the most, and shockingly enough, Haunter, the evolution between Ghastly and Gengar, is my favorite of the three. There's just something about it being a creepy spectral head and hands that float around that is both horrifying to me, but I find to be really cool. I know it sounds weird to like something that scares you, but Haunter, in all its creepiness, is one of my favorite ghost types. I know that competitively Gengar is better, but this is one of my favorites where I vastly prefer Haunter due to its creepy, but totally sick design. Number 7. Hitmonlee. I never realized how much I liked Hitmonlee until I read the Pokemon Adventures manga. In the manga, Bruno has a Hitmonlee, and after seeing how crazy it was in comic form, where it actually stretched out its coiled legs and jumped on things, and broke through buildings, and did a really cool breakdance spin kick thing, I absolutely loved the Pokemon! Now, even before I read the manga, Hitmonlee was always my go-to fighting type whenever I played through Gen 1. Before I discovered the macho-ness of Machamp, I used a Hitmonlee in all my Kanto playthroughs, and while at the time I chose it based purely on design, it's actually a pretty decent fighting type when you get down to it. I have no idea if it's better than Hitmonchan, but for me, I love Hitmonlee, and my appreciation for it has only increased throughout the years. Number 6. Lapras. My love for Lapras stems solely from the Orange Island season of the Pokemon anime. I know it's not the most beloved season of the anime, and at the risk of having people hate me, I'll refrain from talking about how it's one of my personal favorite seasons, but there was just something about the general premise of sailing from island to island on the back of a Lapras that I found captivating. Heck, I still find it awesome. The Orange Islands made it a favorite of mine, and ever since then it's always had a place in my top 10 favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. Number 5. Zapdos. This is the only legendary from Gen 1 I have on my list, and the reason I like it so much is because this was the first legendary Pokemon I ever encountered. Generation 1 was interesting because you could go the entire game without ever seeing one of the original legendaries, and it wasn't until after my first playthrough when I was randomly exploring the abandoned power plant that I encountered this legendary bird. That moment of finding a rare, powerful creature at random has always left an impression on me. Everyone always talks about Mewtwo and Cerulean Cave or glitching the game to get Mew, but for me, seeing a rad electric bird in a rundown power plant had much more of an impact, and Zapdos has been a favorite of mine ever since. Number 4. Raichu. Yeah, that's right, I'm actually a Raichu fan. I was one of those people that throughout the first season of the anime was constantly hoping for Ash to evolve as Pikachu. It never happened, of course, and will probably never happen, but I have vivid memories of watching the Lieutenant Surge episode of the anime and seeing Surge's Raichu absolutely destroy Ash's Pikachu in their first battle. And at that moment, I realized that I actually like Raichu more than Pikachu. I still remember using a Raichu years and years ago and taking him with me to success, and those good memories combined with Surge's Raichu in the anime, mixed in with me genuinely liking Raichu's design and its super long tail that can lash out at enemies, equals me loving Raichu and wishing it got more credit compared to its previous evolutions. Number 3. The 3 Starters. I know I'm cheating by putting all 3 of the Kanto Starters and their evolutions in the same spot, but I just can't help it. When I played through the Gen 1 games years and years ago, I used each of these starters multiple times for many different reasons, and I came to love all of them. Squirtle was a turtle, which was my favorite animal when I was a kid. Bulbasaur helped me against Misty, who I always had trouble defeating, and Charmander was my favorite Pokemon that Ash used in the anime. For pretty much every other generation, I can narrow down my favorite starter pretty easily, but the Gen 1 starters are all tied for me, and I don't think I could ever choose one over the other. I think they're all pretty great, be they their first, second, or final forms, and whenever I replay a Gen 1 game, I always spend hours thinking of which starter Pokemon I want to use. Number 2. Arcanine. I like dogs. I don't know if I even need to say any more than that, but growing up I was always a dog kind of person, but alas I never got to have one. Nowadays I have 2 dogs, but at the time of Generation 1, as a kid who always wanted a pet dog, Arcanine was the closest I ever got and I absolutely loved him. Even now that I'm grown, my love for Arcanine hasn't diminished at all. It's a giant fire dog. It literally couldn't be any more awesome. Maybe a Mega Evolution or an exclusive Z move could amp up the coolness, but based purely on design and its concept, I love everything about Arcanine and make sure to use one whenever I can, regardless if I'm playing a Gen 1 game or not. And my number 1 favorite Generation 1 Pokemon is... I don't know what it is about Wigglytuff, but I love it. I'm neutral to Igglybuff, I'm neutral to Jigglypuff, but something about Wigglytuff just really speaks to me. So much so that it's my favorite Pokemon from Generation 1. I know this probably sounds crazy, and I'm sure that nobody ever would have thought that the Tuff would be my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. But we all have that one Pokemon that we just can't explain why we like it so much, but we just do, and Wigglytuff is that Pokemon for me. I think it's a combination of the idea that Wigglytuff's design is so huggable and nice, but at the same time it can also be really tough and double slap people to victory if it needs to. And there's something about that I find totally awesome, if not a little bit funny at times. I may never fully understand my love for this pink rabbit bean pompadour wearing Pokemon, but it's my number 1 favorite Generation 1 Pokemon, and we need to free the Tuff and get it a Mega Evolution. And these are my top 10 favorite Generation 1 Pokemon. Yes, I know it's a pretty crazy list, and some of the really popular Kanto Pokemon like Dragonite and Mewtwo aren't on it, but these 10 are my personal favorites, and I wouldn't trade them away for anything. Anyways, what are your guys' favorite Gen 1 Pokemon? Maybe you champion Hitmonchan. Perhaps Starmie is one of your favorites. Feel free to let me know what your favorite Generation 1 Pokemon are in the comments section below. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.